Welcome in, everybody. It is time for the Belly Up Fantasy Live Dynasty Edition, and we are here. Oh, I'm here.
That's right. You're here, Justin. You're here.
Special guest hosting for the day. As you know, we have Kevin Wilson over here, our resident Seahawks, Bengals fan, resident rival of my team, the 49ers. How you doing today, Kev?
We're doing great over here, and just want to give a early shout out to all the dads out there, as this is Father's Day, of course. And
yes.
So if you're a father and you're watching us, salute to you.
Yes, sir, and happy Father's Day to my father. Hopefully he's watching, but maybe he's at the golf course right now. Once again, we also have Chase in today. How are you doing today, Chase?
Getting by. It's early enough in the morning. I woke up this morning, and both of my youngest sons were in bed with me and tried jumping all over me. Wake up! It's Father's Day. They've been excited to have me open the surprise that they made for me at daycare, which I've been told repeatedly includes cookies.
Okay.
All right. We can open your present so we can eat it. And I'm like, okay. So no, it's going to be a good day. Get some fantasy football talked about, and then go spend some time with the family. And weather's hotter than blazes up here for Northwest Wisconsin. But,
well, that's what you get for saying it was 70 whatever last week. So
right, yeah, right. We had beautiful weather last week. Now it's like, oh man, I got a little sunburn. We went to a Ren Fest yesterday with the family, and yeah, I'm just a little sunburned, but doing well. Happy to be here today.
Nice. You always got to pack sunblocks for those festivals, man.
That's right.
Always get you
every single time. Yeah. Dad was arrogant. Thought I could make it. Nope, not much.
Well, Kev, I don't know how it is over there. It is actually not blazing hot in Maryland right now. It is surprising. We are usually in a sauna. It's usually about a good 70% humidity and about 80 degrees outside. So it feels like 100 all the time. But today we're at 70 degrees. I think we only have like 30% humidity.
It's coming to you then, Justin, because it's what here? 90 degrees at 10 o'clock in the morning here.
Jesus Christ. Oh man, I'll leave Texas for my in-laws. But anyways, guys, this is going to be a good show. We're going to talk a little bit about minicamp, the standouts that we think were from that. You know, minicamp's obviously one of those situations where it's just the first time you get to really see these guys do team activities. So, you know, it's good to kind of evaluate who you're liking going with in fantasy right now and kind of back that up, and then maybe kind of get an idea of who might be dropping the ball literally right now. But before that, I kind of want to throw this in there. Deshaun Watson is looking at maybe a 1-year suspension right now. The NFL has literally came out and said, we are going to be targeting 1 year as his suspension. This is going to fall into something that we talk a little bit later, but I wanted to kind of get your guys' viewpoint on him right now, since we are a dynasty show and we are talking about more than 1 year. You know, are you guys taking this into account for maybe drafting him as your third QB if he falls that way for future seasons? Or are you looking at this as maybe the red flag that maybe his career might be nearing its end? Because, you know, the NFL could easily say, we want infinite or indefinite suspension until this thing is resolved. And, you know, what if this thing's not resolved for another 2 years? I know the trials aren't going to be going down until 2023. So I just want to pass that around to you guys. Just get a quick word out of you guys for that one. Let's start out with you first, Chase.
Well, as a most of the time Browns fan and as a fantasy guy, I've been paying attention to this a lot because you know, if Deshaun Watson can come back and if he can be the player that he was before, remember he had 3 straight top 6 finishes before he took last season off. You know, then he's fantasy gold, and he could be really good for the Browns, which means he could be really good for Amari Cooper, David Bell, and the rest of Donovan Peoples-Jones, Njoku. But you know, everything I saw of it and heard this week, and I heard some of the punditry on it and that, it seems like, well, okay, here's the thing. If we are, because they have to wait till the arbitrator gives her decision.
Mm-hmm.
They've got that independent arbitrator, that judge, and she'll give her recommendation for what she thinks the punishment should be. And everything I've seen is that the league is trying to, or maybe trying to tell her, hey, you set it at a level where both sides can argue up or down on it, and it still looks like the NFL comes out ahead on it. If she says, oh, I recommend 6 games, and the NFL says, we're going to argue for a year, and then they compromise on 8 months, well, then we gave him more than, or eight games, well, we gave him more than she wanted to give, or whatever. Regardless, I don't think you can count on him this year for your week 1 to week 16, 17, 18 starting quarterback. Okay. However, I am in 2 slow drafts right now. One for an orphan team that I took over, and another one for a dispersal draft. And in the dispersal draft, I had the number 1 overall pick. My choices at quarterback in a super flex league. So I was going quarterback early, were Watson, Prescott, Wilson, and who else? Yeah, Wilson, Prescott. I had Tom Brady, a lot of old guys, and Watson was ranked the highest on the board there, and I took him. I came back around. When it came back around to me, it's 9 teams dispersing in this 16-team league. When it came back around, I grabbed Tom Brady. Now I know I have a quarterback for this season. If it all works out, Watson gets to come back. I'm not counting on him at all this year. I'm counting on him for next year. I decided I'd take the risk, shoot big. But I don't think you can count on him in any way, shape, or form for this current season. So, yeah, like you said, if you're doing a startup draft right now, if you can finagle your way into getting him as one of your maybe 3, especially if you're in a 2-quarterback or super flex league, he might not be the worst choice. I'm banking on that, but like you said, you have to come back and you have to make sure that you shore up the rest of your team. I will be also, looking at drafting when the rookie draft comes around in the same league. I'll be looking at drafting a younger guy or 2. And I'm still looking at who's on the board there's still some decent quarterback 2s on the board that I could grab for this year and kind of keep myself competitive this year without mailing in the farm for him. So I wouldn't be completely scared off of him yet, but I would not expect anything from him this season again, which means 2 seasons off. We'll see what we get next year.
Yeah, I mean, you posed a good situation there. Like, what if it's just maybe a meet in the middle type of thing where, like you said, she says, oh, we want, maybe it's like a 6-game suspension, and then, they meet in the middle at 8. Yeah. At that point, that gives a little optimism for like one of those late season bursts where, Browns might not make the playoffs because their schedule's a little extra hard this year, but Deshaun Watson could be just catching his groove right around week 17 when your championship's going. And, if you get him for absolutely nothing because everybody's scared off by him, that's the one thing I always tell people, never be scared off by somebody. Always kind of go into it with a logical mindset. Like you said, like, don't get him as your number 1, but if he's looking at you as your QB3 and you shored up other positions well enough, yeah, take a shot. I mean, it happened for people, and I was one of them. A year ago with my auction draft, I took Aaron Rodgers when he was retired, and it ended up turning into an MVP season for him. I had Tom Brady and him in a super flex, and I ended up winning that league. So I had no regrets taking him at freaking $2 in an auction league when he was retired.
Right.
Yeah. So Kev, I want to get your input on this one. Tell me what you're thinking with this Watson situation with all we have found out between me and Chase.
Well, this whole thing is like a specter hanging over, not only Cleveland, but the, fantasy and everything else. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of interesting how we went from, well, will he be suspended? And all of a sudden, now this is the word significant comes into the conversation. And so this is another reason why we don't hold drafts in June. And so, I understand what you're saying about, don't be scared off a guy, but, the first round to me is not a place where you take a chance. You take the solid floor to me in the first round. So if you're sitting there and you got your quarterback locked in, maybe your second quarterback locked in, and he's still hanging around out there, I could see, taking a shot at him because he's going to play, you figure, at some point. And I just think this, my friend here in Texas is one of the biggest Cleveland Brown fans I've ever come across. And he's just like, wouldn't this be the most Cleveland Brown move of all time where they make all these moves and he doesn't play this year? And that's not out of the realm of possibility, I don't think, because if you look at baseball and the guy, the Dodger.
Trevor Bauer, yes.
Yeah, Trevor Bauer. He didn't have any, charges or anything else. And he wound up getting suspended for 2 years.
Right.
And the NFL is known to throw down the hammer much more than baseball is. And so that kind of gives me pause on this whole thing. And it gives me a lot of heartburn because I'm a Clemson guy. And he was, the Clemson quarterback who led them to their first, not their first national championship, but the first one in modern times. If
Right,
you want to call it that.
First one for a long time.
Right. So, he's always been a special player to me. And to have all this going on is just disappointing to me on a personal level. And so, but this is a fantasy show. I just can't see, taking a huge swing at this guy, especially like Chase was talking about all those other guys that he had an opportunity to take. I would have taken one of those guys, seems to me, if I was in his place.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the way I see it, it's a big swing at number one. I knew I wasn't going to pick again. It's a snake draft at 2 for the dispersal. The rest of this league, the rookie draft will be just in order every round. But the dispersal's a snake. I was like, man, I'm not picking again for a long time. I know I have to have, I know quarterbacks are going to be at a premium. And I was like, well, maybe I can make it through a year though, waiting on him. If he comes back, it'd be a big pull. I ended up getting a lot of positive feedback in the group chat for the league. A lot of guys, a lot of dang kind of things. But well, too bad I had the pick, so I got him. We'll see. It feels you feel kind of. It's an uncomfortable thing to talk about with what's going on in the situation, how big the situation is. 24 now, I think it is, with possibly 2 more suits coming up against him.
But a guy that has millions of dollars, what's the deal with that?
Right.
You know what I mean? I just don't understand this whole thing at all.
I don't either. And it feels kind of skeevy talking about it, like, well, when he comes back, when this is all behind him, and like, who knows if it's going to be behind anybody ever, if all this stuff is
I mean, it'll never be behind him because you still hear people talking about Ben Roethlisberger and that underage girl.
Right.
You still hear
and that happened how many years ago?
Leave his reputation.
Right.
But it's all about what he does after that, right? Is he going to be a good person after that? You can only control the future at this point, what you're going to do in the present and what you're going to do in the future. You can't control the past. So And I mean, I don't know. There's
let's say he does get suspended for this whole year, then he hasn't played for 2 years.
Right.
2 years, you figure that he's going to be a great quarterback, but you don't know. 2 years, who knows what that could do to you?
2 years off is a long time in the NFL.
It is, especially in football. It's not like in baseball where you're playing for 15 years or whatever. Football, you could be done next year.
Yeah, 100%. I think the only silver lining under the suspension thing is that the Browns want him to be on the field, unlike the Texans where they had him playing like free safety in practice last year. The Browns will keep him in with the reps and all that stuff. So if he misses a year, he won't be completely off because he won't be thinking he's lining up as a free safety anymore for the practice squad. You know what I mean? Like he's going to be facing on these practice squads, these second teams. He's going to be facing the first team defense and stuff like that. So if there's any underlining value there, it's the fact that he will still be a little bit ready to play for the NFL. Because when you're suspended, you can still practice. You just can't play.
Well, you have to think about the Houston Texans. They got to be dancing the jig from here to. Oh yeah. I don't know where their training camp is, but they'll be doing a jig all the way to that this year.
Yeah, they definitely made out with that one because 3 first-round picks. Like you said, like your friend said, it might be the most Browns move we've ever seen before because
Yeah.
3 first-round picks and $200 million down the drain. If this gets to this absolutely atomic level where he's missing years, yeah, nobody's gonna ever let the Browns forget that.
And they shouldn't. And they shouldn't.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean that's
Right.
taking away money.
They finally sign an acknowledged superstar quarterback in terms of ability and talent, and then never get a chance to roll him out would be that would be a Cleveland.
Yeah, because they had a quarterback on their roster that actually won a playoff game, which hasn't happened since it seems like the 1950s or whatever, and then they just push him off to the side, and now they're going to be playing what, Jacoby Brissett? Come on.
It won't be Baker. It won't be Baker for
No,
sure.
it will definitely not be Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
He's in a great. You got to admit, he's in a great position. He's going to get paid whether he plays or doesn't. And so, you're just sitting over there going, dude, just do what you want. Just make sure I get my pay on time.
If he doesn't go and play for them and he gets stuck on their roster, at the end of the day, like you said, he's getting $18 million and he's getting the rest up for his free agency next year.
That's right.
Had all that damage to his body, the separated shoulder, everything torn up. He gets to rest and make $18 million and still do progressive commercials. So win-win for him, right?
Right. And wouldn't that be the most another Brown thing? Because Browns are terrified that he goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Wouldn't that be something if that's what happened?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like I'm terrified Jimmy Garoppolo is going to go to the Seahawks.
Well, they have had some talks. I've seen that talks have re-picked up, I guess, between Carolina and
I heard that.
And they're the teams with the top two. They're the top 2 teams in terms of cap space of remaining.
Right.
So they're basically just haggling. There could be a deal done this afternoon if they wanted it to be. It's just who's going to blink first on who's going to take more of his money, who's going to have to take on more of that contract. For the Browns, it's such a sunk cost anyway. Yeah. Anything you can get back from him, you owe him what, 18? It's like 18.1 or something $million this year. If you can get if you have to pay 18 of that and keep $100,000, but still get a pick back for him, that's better than paying 18.1 and not having anything out of him. If you cut him right now, he goes anywhere he wants, including Pittsburgh, like you just said. You cut him right now, he goes anywhere that they'll have him, and you're on the hook for all of that money. If you trade him,
all but the league minimum.
All but the league minimum, which is what, 600 something?
Yeah.
If you trade him somewhere, you get something back for that investment. Besides what he's given you the last 4 years as your quarterback, which, to be honest, has been the best Cleveland quarterback in several decades. I don't know. I don't know why they're being so stubborn when, like I said, you've got the second most caps. You've got one of the top 2 cap situations in the whole game. You've got your backup plan in place with Jacoby Brissett to take care of Watson until Watson comes back. Jacoby Brissett is not a superstar, but they've got a very winnable early season schedule if Watson can play this year. Mayfield is not he's not honestly going to get on the field for you. I wish he could. I wish he would. But it looks to me like that situation is so shot that.
Well, that's the most shot situation I think I've ever seen with a professional.
They need to just give it up, walk away, let him go for something, and move on. You've already got your guy in the building, like you said, like he said. They went and got their guys. I'm not their guy. It'd be nice to see a solution to that and a resolution to that, because it also keeps the quarterback situation in Carolina wide open, and who knows what the hell will happen there.
Yeah, we could talk about that in a minute. I got that in my note.
Right. But I'm just it's like there's so much stuff that from a fantasy standpoint would be nice to see that could be resolved by just completing that Baker Mayfield situation and moving on. We know we're not going to know about the Watson Brissett thing. We know that's going to be chaos. We don't want chaos in Carolina and in Seattle and in wherever else. because
Well, I mean, I don't know about you. I'll take that chaos because I have no plans on ever getting.
well, I'm
any
fine on that too because but no,
I will leave that for the people that are QB1ing and going like to the very end, looking for that QB2 in a superflex and having to pick between Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield.
No. Yeah, don't let that be you. Okay, don't let it be you.
Between the two,
I will leave that for them.
Yeah, don't let that be you.
I don't know.
Those brave souls. Those brave and the bold. Well, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and afterwards we're going to start talking about some mini camp observations we've had, some guys we liked, and then we're going to get into actually some of the reasons that we're not drafted in June. All right, guys, we're going to hit it with a Manscaped real quick and clean up our balls.
Sweaty sack summer is approaching, and it's time for you to prioritize the comfort of your crotch. That's why the kings of crotch comfort, Manscaped, have spent 2 years designing the most comfortable boxer briefs out there. I've had the honor of testing out these new boxers, and I can say it's the softest fabric of any underwear. So breathable that it's like gills for your groin. They even trademark the jewel pouch, so you know it's serious. I think it's time you invest in your family jewels, so let your bulge breathe and get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. Let's say you're on a date and your partner catches that Manscaped on the waistband of your underwear. It's almost guaranteed to raise some eyebrows and act like a billboard on the highway to Pleasure Town. This is thanks to the Lawnmower 4.0, the best electric trimmer for below-the-waist grooming. This trimmer offers skin-safe technology designed to trim hair on loose skin. Outside of just ball trimming, they're now focusing their efforts on helping out your thigh slappers in other ways with game-changing boxers. These boxer features include the Jewel Pouch, a pouch designed to cradle your boys in their own special space, lined with perforated performance fabric, and keep them well ventilated. Basically, just imagine your balls sipping pina coladas, chilling on a hammock on some tropical beach. Get 20% off and free shipping when you use the promo code BELLYUPFANTASY at manscaped.com. One more time. That's promo code BELLYUPFANTASY to get 20% off and free shipping. Once the Boxers 2.0 touch your sack, you'll never go back. Sweaty.
Sometimes I wonder if Dan comes up with those or if he gets those reads sent to him, because some of those things are fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah, so you're talking about pina coladas and balls all in the same sentence. That's not something I thought I would ever hear, in my natural born days. But he brings on the power with it.
Your balls will feel like they're slipping a pina colada. Okay, all right.
Yeah, so,
I kind of want to feel that.
Sign up right now.
Got to get that get that ball pouch that he's talking about. But anyways, Manscaped is a great company. They've got everything. They've got underwear. They've got stuff for your paws and everything like that. They've got the razor. They've got the
stuff for your nose and your ears and all. Just bring it. Just get on there, and go crazy.
20% off. Use
20% off.
Belly up.
Holy mackerel! 20% off. Yeah.
There you go. All right, guys. So let's clean up our acts for a second here. And let's start talking about minicamp.
Okay.
I want to, pass it to you guys real quick before I get on, because I think you know who I'm going to talk about. Anyways, guys, minicamp is like I said, it's the time when we first get to see these guys. We get to see some of the rookies come out that we've been all, oh man, he's going to be great and all that and blah, blah, blah. And, it's one of those times that people start to really talk about players again. So I want to pass it around to you first, Kevin. I want you to tell me a couple guys that you felt like you came out really impressed with, maybe two guys that you were, drafting and you're like, all right, now I'm like solidified. I feel really good. This guy looks good. He packed on some pounds. Maybe he got better with his route running. Yeah, just tell me a couple guys.
Okay. So the first guy that I was really not sure if I was going to buy into him is Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver over there in Baltimore. And I was reading that he's showing signs of growth, which you appreciate that. If you're going to be a professional athlete, growth would be outstanding. And so But the biggest thing to me is he's improved his chemistry with Lamar Jackson, and apparently they had to play of the entire minicamp, the last day of minicamp when they connected on a 65-yard touchdown. And so
did
he's
Jackson
the wide
tweet
receiver
that?
one.
I saw that tweeted. I thought
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
posted that on,
He's the wide receiver one over there, and he's a guy that you can get maybe a little bit later on in the draft than some of these other wide receiver ones. So if you can lock in a guy that you like, Justin Jefferson or somebody like that, and then get somebody like Bateman later on, you're going to be potentially in pretty good shape. So I like what I heard out of that. And another wide receiver that I was liking what I was hearing is Marquise Brown of the Cardinals. And it's interesting that I was reading that he had a 27% chance of catching balls 20 yards or further down the field because he didn't have a good quarterback. So now he's got, of course, the guy that runs off, So Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray was second in adjusted completion of passes of 20 yards or more. So you got to like that. You got to like the sound of that. And especially if they've got players that are, being suspended. We're talking about suspension players and everything else. But their wide receiver one is going to be out for 6 games. So that looks good to me right there. Those 2 wide receivers. I'm liking what I'm hearing.
How much of that Kyler Murray statistic, though, is just F it? Hopkins is down there somewhere and tossing it up, and you've got one of the best in the game just going and finding it too. But no, I agree that
about the same amount Aaron Rodgers did.
Right. So,
but no. First off, damn, you took one of mine because I like Rashad Bateman a lot. I've got him on my radar. I've had him on my radar. I was higher on him than I think you were coming into the year. But
yes, you were. Yeah, because I was kind of like, I don't know, but yeah, he's showing it to me so far.
I thought that it's been a long time since they've had a true top wide receiver one type guy. They've had a lot of capable guys play for them, and a lot of guys that were rosterable in fantasy, but nobody that really stuck out and grabbed you by the short and curlies and made you pay attention. I think he's got probably the most well-rounded skill set maybe of everybody that's been there in the last 10 so years. I know he's got the best and most well-rounded skill set that Jackson's played with. And to hear, like you said, to hear the reports coming out of camp that their chemistry is going well and that he's looking good is very very encouraging to me. I liked him already. I like him still. I think I have him on a roster or 2, and I couldn't be more thrilled about it. And I know I'm targeting him here in these 2 slow drafts that I'm in. The other guy, one of the other guys that I've been paying attention to, one of the other situations coming out of Pittsburgh, they were talking about. Mitch Trubisky has been the only one who's been working with the ones. He's the only one who's worked with their number 1 line and number 1 receivers. But they've actually had Pickett working with the 3s. He's been
that was one of the things I was going to bring up too. That's not good. That's not good.
Well, it's not good from the standpoint of getting anything out of him this year. But I don't think it's a bad thing in terms of his development. I think it points to Trubisky being that classic transition quarterback. He's only got a 2-year contract. He's only getting paid about $15 million or so. He's not expensive. They do not have a ton of money locked up in their quarterback room right now.
It's essentially a 1-year deal as far as guaranteed.
Right? They can cut him with almost no penalty here next year if they want. But if they want, they've got him for 2 very affordable years. They've still got almost no money wrapped up in that quarterback room. So the process of having your young quarterback on a rookie contract and ramming guys around him to try and chase a championship early is still open for them. And if Pickett can learn for 2 seasons, Trubisky has been a viable fantasy quarterback in the past. Forget the fact that, he's a Pro Bowler. And he was a Pro Bowler by default because 31 other guys in the league play. He's not that good, but he can be a viable fantasy quarterback. I'm not worried about him from a realistic standpoint. I don't care if the Steelers win a flipping game, but he can put up some stats. He's mobile. He can run, and he can throw the ball. And I would take him as like a number 2 in a 2 quarterback league, super flex league. I'll take Trubisky as a 2. What it tells me is that, okay, fine. They're not going with Pickett as their number 2. That's okay. What it tells me is I need to have, if I've got Pickett or if I'm targeting him in a draft, I know that I'm not getting anything out of him this year. I'm going to not plan on having anything out of him next year. But I think it bodes really well for him to grow and get exclusive reps with the quarterback coach as a number 3. As a number 3, he's not having to take, he's not necessarily doing all the other stuff in practice that everybody else is. I think it bodes well for him being developed as the heir apparent to Mitch Trubisky. So I would take in short-term formats, in a redraft format, I'm definitely looking at Trubisky. I'm not touching Pickett. In a dynasty format, I'm still going to invest in Pickett if he can come to me at the right price, but you need to have a plan for 2 years in case he doesn't see the field next year. I don't think it's going to happen this year at all.
Yeah. The problem to me is that you mentioned about the right price. And so I don't think that if you'll get him at the right price, because someone's going to take him in the first round. So that's something I'd be targeting in my draft. I'm 10th in the draft that, in my league. So I'm not looking at that. But you're right, though, Chase, about Mitch Trubisky, because in this other league that we already had the rookie draft, and we'll talk about all that in a minute. But as soon as that draft was over, I went and I picked up Mitch Trubisky off the waiver wire, because in a 2 quarterback league, you almost can't have enough quarterback.
Right.
And I see that he's going to be a starter this year, so I picked him up. And I did the same with Marcus Mariota.
Yeah,
I picked them both up.
16
and so now I've got like 5 quarterbacks on my team. So I'm good to go at quarterback.
I'm in a 16-team super flex league. Not everybody can start 2 quarterbacks if somebody's got 3. So
I've got
So he's
and there's no if you're going to be in a 2, you should maybe have a limit to the amount of quarterbacks you have on a roster. Guys are getting ready to start up. You might want to think about that, because I definitely smashed the 3 quarterbacks all completely to smithereens.
I think with the Pickett situation too, though, even if you're not taking him, if you're not looking at taking him this year, fine. Somebody jumps in and takes him with crazy pick number 8 or something ridiculous like that. Because he should go later first if he goes in the first. He should go later first just based on value. I get that position scarcity and that sometimes demands that quarterbacks jump up, especially the number 1 quarterback in the class. But one thing then I would keep in mind then is to watch. You should know, hopefully a little bit about the guys that you're playing, guys and girls you're playing with. Watch who takes him and watch how they respond to this season when he's not playing. And they may be willing to give him up after the season or during the season for something, especially if one of their big starters gets hurt. You may be able to snipe him at a little bit better. And I'm not advocating necessarily taking advantage of anybody. Always try to do a mutual win situation in a trade. That's how trades happen. Not when you're trying to fleece the other guy.
It's a game. It's a game. We all understand.
It's a game, but if someone will let them get fleeced, go ahead and fleece away.
Their team.
Hey, every once in a while, we all get a deal where we're like, that's amazing. I love it. I just love it when they offer me that, and I'm like, I don't even feel bad. I don't feel bad. You think this is fair?
No. Don't feel bad even for a second. You can sleep like a baby. No problem.
Oh, I'm already dreaming about championship belts and rings at that point.
It's easier to get a trade accepted if you're thinking about the other side and is this a trade I would realistically accept. It's easier to get a trade accepted that way. But if you propose something or they propose it to you, if it gets accepted, great, because obviously you both felt it was fair in the moment. So
right. And that goes back to, like you're saying, know the guys in your league.
Yeah.
If there's a guy in my league, as soon as he makes a trade offer, I know he's trying to screw me over.
Right.
I know it.
I just want to throw in a couple tidbits to go off of what you guys are saying. Bateman right now is wide receiver 31, so that puts him in the tier of a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, which I agree with you, Chase. Complete steal at that point. Guy has incredible value.
Go get him. No
Yeah.
question about that.
Guy has
Especially in
incredible
a dynasty
value.
format where, in a dynasty format, he's young. And if he's a starting receiver, he can be a starting receiver. I mean, literally for 8-10 years, who knows? Even if he's not that wide receiver 1 or 2 level for 8-10 years, wide receivers we know have a longer shelf life than running backs. Quarterbacks have a longer shelf life than receivers or running backs. So you keep that kind of thing in mind. He plays the right position to take him now, get him now. You will have somebody for a long time, barring the unforeseen, which could happen to any guy on your roster.
And the biggest issue with him has always been everybody has this stereotype of what they think the Baltimore offense is going to just be.
Right.
Run first. And that's why I always tell people, break your stereotypes, because most of the time they're wrong. Like the fantasy community will be sold on, 49ers and Ravens are running back committees. When then you see that the actual starting running back gets 80% of the touches. You're like, that's not a committee. That means whenever they need a first down or something, they're going for this guy. He's in the game. It's not a roundabout like, oh, yeah, you're in next, kid. You're in next, kid. No, it's one guy. But if he gets injured, then you have to have the other guy.
We're not rotating out like high school running backs, sending in the play with the guy every play, right?
Exactly.
And people, like you said, break the stereotype. Derek Mason, here's a blast from the past. Derek Mason was a Baltimore Ravens wide receiver that was a league winner in some cases because he was always a valuable enough starting receiver, but nobody ever thought of him as that. And
Anquan Bolden too.
You could get him on the cheap, and you could plug him into your lineup, and you could spend resources elsewhere. I'm not shying away from Rashad Bateman. I don't care that he went to Minnesota. I don't care that he's a Baltimore Raven. I'll take him if he's there.
Well, see, here's the thing. Last year, Rashad Bateman, I got him in every single league because I got him based off of a couple things. I saw his video smoking Marlon Humphrey like 3 different times. I was just like, that guy is going against an all-pro cornerback, and he just made him look silly. When I saw that, I was just like, I got to get this guy on my roster. I was getting him in second round all the time because of one thing. He had an abdominal tear that happened in training camp. So he was out for, I think, the first 8 weeks of the season. So nobody wanted to buy a guy who was going to be out, at least not at like a first round, early second round price. So I said, fuck it. I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'm going to have a guy, like you said, for Dynasty, long term.
Right.
And those are the moves that guys, everybody looks at and says, I want to wait for the value pick. Those are the moves that down the years, like this year or a couple years down the line, I'm going to be winning championships with, and you guys are going to wish you had made that move. So never be afraid to stray away from the pack and that.
That's right.
And actually change
especially
up
after the first round. If you've got an instinct about somebody, do it.
Second round pick on. Your first round pick is the one pick you got to hit on. Everything else is just, sometimes you're playing with house money. You're like, okay, fine. I'll put a lottery ticket on this guy, lottery ticket on that guy. Fourth round is all lottery tickets. Just go with who you think is going to play.
Absolutely. Yep. Upside, and that's part of the draft. No question about that.
I also wanted to talk about Marquise Brown because Kevin brought him up too. Marquise Brown is a great one. Right now, he's wide receiver 24. Right now, he's looking at wide receiver 1 numbers for the first 6 weeks, probably even more because Hopkins is going to come back in. But he's going to be rusty for at least 2 weeks. You can always guarantee when these guys get suspended, they never come back fully to their capabilities. That is a guy who's going to win your first half for you, Marquise Brown. If you let him slip to that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range, you might be on the losing end of that one. So don't let him slip. He has a repertoire with fucking Kyler Murray. He's a fast guy, man. I mean, last year they really used him everywhere, the slot, the outside, everywhere, and he got receptions. He broke kind of the stereotype.
He got receptions, but just not the deep ball.
Yeah,
he's versatile enough. He's versatile enough where when they have everybody healthy and off suspension, D-Hop, if they had, say, they could put him anywhere they want. They could put him in the slot. They can put him outside. They could have D. Hopkins and they could have AJ Green. And I know AJ Green is getting old, but he's still 8.5 feet tall, and he still knows what he's doing, unless it's the end of the game and he's forgetting, the time like he did last year. But they could put him in the slot. if they want to put Brown on the outside when everybody's healthy, they've still got Rondale Moore in the slot, who's a classic slot kind of guy, and they can still run him deep. And Brown can play in or out. He's not a one-trick pony. He's not one or the other. Remember, too, then, that the Cardinals are one of those teams that does not necessarily flop their guys. Hopkins is almost always on the left side of the formation.
Yeah.
And so, their slot guy will switch depending on the formation, but their outside guys stay on the same side kind of thing. It's an interesting way to run an offense. But when they've got Hopkins out, we'll want to watch and see what his usage is and how they use him early in the year. But when everybody's healthy with them, he's wide open, versatile. They can put him anywhere. Marquise Brown is a good guy to look at. He's a good guy to go out and get, especially if you can get him. If people are scared off for whatever reason by the fact that he's on a team with DeAndre Hopkins and Rondale Moore and AJ Green
but it's a widespread offense. Like, that's the whole point of the offense, is to have multiple receivers get that, right? Like, and Hopkins is another guy. Do not be afraid to take DeAndre Hopkins. Take him as your wide receiver 3, put him on your bench. You will be fine. Week 7, week 8 comes around, you will be fine. He will be starting.
See if his owner is scared.
Numbers.
See if his owner is scared. See if his owner is worried, and go out and get him that way. Get him for pennies on the dollar, as opposed to paying the price that you have to pay for him and again, we got to think Dynasty here.
That's right. Dynasty.
Somebody already owns DeAndre Hopkins. If you don't own DeAndre Hopkins, somebody does. But you might be able to pick him up for pennies on the dollar right now if that guy's scared and doesn't have him for 6 weeks and is weak at wide receiver or whatever.
Yeah.
See who's got him. See how they feel about him, or see what their situation is. Make an offer. See if you can snipe him, because you'll have a top 24 type wide receiver.
Yeah.
For the season.
For the back end of the season, like we were talking about with Watson. If Watson only gets 8 games, that's a back end of this. Those are just as important as the guys who start off good, because I can't tell you how many times I've started out 3-5 and been in a championship game. And that's because you pick the right guys to break out at the end. If you can do that, like you said, DeAndre Hopkins comes back. Week 8 starts to really put up those wide receiver 1 numbers again. Holy shit. Here we go. You might be going your way straight to a championship. I do want to talk about one last thing, Chase. I want to talk about what you were talking about with Kenny Pickett and Mitchell Trubisky. So Ben Roethlisberger finished last year quarterback 21. Think about that. Noodle arm Ben Roethlisberger. And how did he do it? Because he had great weapons everywhere. He had a running back who could catch 70 balls.
Najee Harris had 93 targets.
Yeah. He had a running back who caught 80 balls. I'm sorry. I said 70. Is 80. He had, Deontay Johnson. He had Chase Claypool if he could ever get his arm to him anymore. And then he had Pat Freiermuth. The Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's right. Look for Pat Freiermuth. So you're talking about a guy that's going to have value. Pat Freiermuth. That's one guy.
100%. And I think a lot of people are really selling this Pittsburgh Steelers offense as it's going to be worse than it was before. I don't think it could get any worse than last year. Ben Roethlisberger could not move. He could not throw. And now you plug and play a guy in Trubisky and Pickett, who I actually think are pretty much the same guy. They both can run. They both can move. They both can make plays with their elusive ability on the outside. You add in Pickens. You add in Calvin Austin, who's actually been tearing it up this entire offseason in the slot. Not the entire offseason, OTAs, you know what I'm talking about. But you had a lot of interesting weapons in there. And then you also have Freiermuth as your big tight end in the red zone. You got Deontay Johnson, old reliable, and you got Claypool, who I think they should actually move towards the slot and try and utilize him more in the red zone up against like a linebacker. I think that would be deadly as all hell. But you've got so much weaponry here. And their line, believe it or not, actually got a little bit better too.
Right. And that's my point too. Trubisky in the short term over the next year or two has so much more value than people want to give him credit for.
That's why I said I went out and got him. As soon as the rookie draft was over, not 10 minutes later, Mitch Trubisky was on my fantasy team.
But here's my other thing is that in the 2 years, by the time Pickett is ready, they've already got all these weapons. They've got time to put a line around him and to put an actual Pittsburgh defense on the field, which they haven't done in a year or two here. they've got time to surround him by where Pickett could explode. I would not shy away from Pickett if I can get him. I would not shy away from Trubisky for this season. Trubisky's got the possibility too. If you're in a real deep league, a 14 or 16 one quarterback league, or the 2 quarterback league, he's got the possibility to be able to carry you through and at least fill that position for you. Where you could, if you've got another guy, now you maybe can go out and strengthen your roster somewhere else. I'm not worried about the Pittsburgh quarterback situation at all, as long as you understand what it's about right now. That it's Trubisky's ball until Pickett is ready, and I'm not giving Pickett that benefit of the doubt for another 2 seasons. So
ECR right now has Trubisky at 30, Pickett at 31. So they are brothers there. But guys, I want to spin this around while we still have some time. Tell me a couple guys that you're a little bit lower on after minicamp. Let's start out with Kev again.
All right. So the first guy that is disappointing me that I've seen, unfortunately for me, his last name is Wilson. I'm talking about Zach Wilson, the quarterback for the New York Jets.
I like him so
And he's got all the weapons he could possibly ask for right now. And the word out of minicamp that I read was that he needed to improve his fundamentals. And that's not the kind of thing you want to hear out of a guy that's approaching his second season. First season, fine. Second season, he's had all off season to work on his fundamentals and everything else. So that is concerning me right there. And so that's something that we need to keep an eye out going forward into the season. Like I said, I don't like what I'm hearing right there. And we talked about him last week, Treylon Burks. We talked about him on this very show about whether or not he has asthma or whatever the case may be. But he's still limited in practice. So if we talk about rookies, he's not a guy he's not high on my list at this point in time because it's just not happening for him so far. And so those are 2 guys. Let's see. Those are the 2 I wanted to highlight most right there. So Zach Wilson, Treylon Burks, guys that are not impressing me thus far.
How about you, Chase? Who is not impressing you?
The Treylon Burks situation is disappointing just because, I think it's going to make people question his toughness. I think it's going to make, which is ridiculous. If he has asthma, he has asthma. Now, he's not the first guy that has asthma.
No, as we pointed out last week, no, right. He isn't.
But it's going to make people question his toughness early on. I think it's going to get him challenged early on, which might be good for him. You still can't teach his size. You still can't teach any of those physical attributes. But it's disappointing. Similarly, and unfortunately, being a Packer fan, this one hurts. But the Christian Watson news out of Green Bay is that he's still struggling with drops. He doesn't have the hands that they're hoping for right now. But the one thing that I'm taking that with the solace I'm taking in that is that was a question that they had about him coming into the draft.
Right.
Everybody knew that was kind of part of his package, and they took him anyway. And they wanted him anyway. Like I said, you can't teach his height, you can't teach his speed, and he played not championship level football. He played the next level down. He played the FCS, not the FBS or whatever they call it now. I don't know. They've changed the name 16 times.
Yeah, you got you.
It's double A. All right.
No,
all right.
But and the other thing about it is, he's catching NFL footballs now. He's catching a bigger ball thrown at a higher velocity than anybody gave him in college.
Okay, Jamar. They're different, right?
I'm just saying, it's disappointing to hear that he's having those drop problems. Like I said, the one caveat to add to that is that they kind of knew that was his deal coming in. I would like to hear that he's, tearing it up and blowing it up and looking like everything that Aaron Rodgers and everybody else could have hoped for. I've heard actually good things about Romeo Doubs, one of their other 2 receivers they drafted coming out of camp. But again, Doubs was a guy that they had the scouting report on, and they knew that was going to be a better part of his game than Watson's. If you've taken Watson high in rookie drafts, you might be a little off on him right now. You might be a little down on him right now. I wouldn't bail on him. He's still going to be a top receiver in
That might be one of the things that swing you towards Chris Olave, though. To me, if they're both there, and you're
right,
which one to
if you
take.
haven't drafted yet, which I haven't in 1 or 2 leagues. Yeah, if you haven't drafted yet, rookie draft wise, not redraft, but rookie draft wise in Dynasty, maybe you swing a little more towards Chris Olave. And they talked about when they drafted Watson that Rodgers doesn't necessarily like his new guys right away. You need to earn his trust. You maybe weren't going to get anything out of Watson for a year or 2 anyway. Well, you've got Chris Olave coming into an offense now that has, if they're healthy and if they're the players that they have been, he's got Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry to contend with. Jarvis Landry is a pure possession type, move the sticks receiver. He's not that downfield threat. Thomas can do it all. Olave can be a downfield threat, but you may not be getting wide receiver 1 or 2 value out of Olave this season either. We don't know what's going to happen. Like I said, if Thomas comes back and he's healthy and he's Michael Thomas, if he's 80% of Michael Thomas, and you're not gonna sit Michael Thomas, I don't think, or Jarvis Landry for Olave. Olave, I'm looking at as the 3 going in there.
Yeah.
But Watson, you got to look at Watson coming into the Packers situation as the 3 or 4-2 right now. There are guys on that team, Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, who have the trust of Aaron Rodgers a lot more than Christian Watson does. So, yeah, in a draft situation, this news coming out that Watson's got a case of the dropsies or still has a case of the dropsies, I agree with you, Kevin. Might push you a little more towards taking maybe Olave first or earlier. I agree with that. It's frustrating from a Packer fan standpoint, but what are you going to do? At least we're not worried about our quarterback for 1 season.
Well, at least as a Packer fan, you have the evidence of Devontae Adams being an early dropper as well. And so, obviously the one thing you can't teach about Christian Watson is the dude runs a 4.35 and he is 6'5",
9.5 feet tall. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't
don't run that fast.
You can't teach that. I compared him early on to DK Metcalf, and a lot of people, I got guff for it. I'm like, look at the stats. They both didn't perform heavily in their college years. Like Metcalf, I think, never had more than 40 receptions in a season with Ole Miss. Everybody's like, oh, well, we're different schools. I'm just like, or different conferences and shit. And I was just like, yeah, but at the end of the day, Watson was still on a national championship winning team 3 years. You know what I mean? Like he was still on a really good squad that was known for more run base because their quarterbacks after Trey Lance sucked. So when I look at this, I go, he might have a problem adjusting early on, but like we were just talking about, Jamar Chase had these same questions, and then he came out and blew it away. And the one thing you can really take advantage with is you could possibly in a startup get Olave and Christian Watson if you wanted to really bank on the back end of your receiving core being young. You can get them both. And last year, Jamar Chase's numbers, I believe they dropped from early June to early August by a couple rounds. So people who were getting Jamar Chase later on in drafts, they were getting a steal based off where he was going after his initial draft.
How many headlines did we see last year where Jamar Chase is dropping every ball that's tossed to him? Jamar Chase gets the friggin' football. And now there isn't a player in his or her right mind who would not take Jamar Chase in a heartbeat.
They're taking him over Justin Jefferson.
Right?
Yeah. I'm not.
I know you're not.
Maybe you're not. I would. But because he's got a chance to grow with his quarterback. He's playing with his quarterback, and the two of them are going to be together a long time, barring anything unforeseen. Yeah. But the other thing that is frustrating me, and it's not necessarily because of anything that he is or isn't doing, but we're still hearing this, and Justin, maybe you can speak to this a little bit. I keep hearing ideas that Garoppolo, if he's healthy, will still be the starter for San Francisco. And that Trey Lance may or may not have taken that death grip hold on that job like they wanted him to, and like everybody else who owns him wants him to. I guess it shocked me a little bit when they took him as high as they did, when they traded and did everything they had to do to get him for him. And I don't mean that as a slight on him as a person. I'm just saying, he wasn't that highly rated by almost anybody else. So why they did what they did to have to take him.
Yeah.
But if you own him, you're hoping you've got this young running quarterback, the perfect situation going forward. And now you're hearing that, well, they've basically handed him the job and he hasn't necessarily grabbed a hold of it. And that there is, there's speculation at least that if Garoppolo is healthy and shows that they're not as high on moving him as possible. You may have heard more about that in terms of, because it's your team.
Yeah.
Everything I've seen is that is still in question very much. And that's disappointing from the standpoint of, if Trey Lance could grab that job and keep it, he's got weaponry to throw to. He can run because he's athletic as all hell. But man, it'd be nice to see some real concrete clarification on that. Either get rid of Garoppolo or come right out and say, no, Trey's our starter, Trey's our starter, Trey's our starter.
So I'll talk to that real quick.
Yeah, please do.
Actually, in minicamp, they dismissed Jimmy Garoppolo coming in, and they called it as, him recovering from surgery. But really what they were trying to do was make sure that Trey Lance had the feeling that he was the number one quarterback. And, it was one of those things where he had up and down days, but how he finished minicamp was very promising. He only threw one interception in minicamp at the very last week of minicamp, and it was because Brandon Ayuk dropped the ball. So it was to Brandon Ayuk, but he kind of just missed it. He missed it, and it got into the hands of the defender. But he ended his last 2 days of minicamp. He ended 14 and 8 through 18 with 2 deep passes, what they called it, and then 10 of 15. So he was doing pretty well. And it's been one thing that's been really promising is the secondary has been absolutely gawing over him. D'Amico Ryans has been saying he can't scheming wise, his secondary has been getting chewed up all day long by Trey Lance. And one of the guys I actually wanted to point out too was Danny Gray, the SMU wide receiver. Yeah. He's been coming in and he has been absolutely tearing it up, according to reporters in San Francisco. He's been meshing with Lance really well. They've been hitting deep balls all day long with him. If you remember, he hit a 4.38 speed, not the Watson speed, but definitely something to go wow about.
What's your take on Gray versus Ayuk?
They're two different people. Ayuk, I always envisioned as being more of our possession receiver, while Gray could definitely be a slot to a deep threat. And Debo is such the utility guy that he could fit in everywhere. A lot of people forget Debo is a really fucking fast wide receiver when he gets in open field. He's never been the route tactician that I've always kind of thought, Brandon Ayuk's a better route tactician, but he's not necessarily always seeking out contact. That's why he was always trying to hurdle people and shit like that.
He's fast and he's quick, which is why he worked out as a running back.
Yeah. And the thing is that the one trait the 49ers always look for in their receivers, and it's a testament to their offense, which is why I've been saying a lot that the Jets and the Dolphins don't really fit the Shanahan system, is they're always looking for blockers. They're always looking for guys that in college were willingness to block. That's why they always pass up on guys. You know what I mean? Everybody's like, oh, why did they pass up on this guy? Because he's not a good blocker. He doesn't fit the system that well. But SMU, Danny Gray was amazing after the catch. You look at his highlights. He was one of those guys that catch short passes and take it to the house. You know what? That's the type of guy that they're kind of looking for. With Trey, I saw a little bit of his camp tape. He looks like his mechanics have gotten better. One thing that I noticed right away last year was he would fireball passes into people's – it was the broken finger syndrome. He would break his receiver's fingers. The ball would go, whoa.
As hard as you can every time, regardless of whether it needed touch or not. Yep.
Exactly. He had very little touch on it. And he looks like working with John Beck this offseason has put the touch on it. So I'm going to wrap it up because I could rap about Trey Lance all freaking day long.
Check the clock there.
But guys, was another great episode. Kevin, give us a quick plug. What are you doing?
We got the baseball show tonight, and then on Thursday got the draft. We'll be going live with that, so check that out. And you can always find me on the Belly Up Fantasy website. So that's where I'm at.
Chase, how about you? What are you working on?
Likewise, check me out on the Fantasy Belly Up website. And you can catch me here every Sunday. I'm right here. Also, check me out on Twitter, SDT Chase, FFB. If you got something to say it. I'll talk back. I got nothing else to do. So
There you go. There you go. And I've heard you've been on a couple podcasts ranting about being a Brewers fan.
yes, I have. I've had a lot of practice lately on defending my franchise for not winning a World Series yet, but being competitive and having, we still got some heart around here. Plus, we've got Bob Euchre. So
There you go.
There you go. All right. Well, for all of us over at the Belly Up Fantasy Live, we thank you for tuning in and have a great rest of your Sunday.
That's
Go
right.
do something. It's probably beautiful where you're at. Go fishing, go camping, go